This is Show Up as a Leader, a show from People Forward Network, helping you maximize your positive impact on the world by becoming your best, fully authentic self. Hey everyone. I am so grateful for this conversation that I got to have with the wonderful, human, incredibly transparent Chris Allaire. He is the founder and CEO of a company called Verity. They are a technology staffing company who has been named the best staffing company to work for in North America. He is such a great example of an authentic leader. And we just jump right in and talk about the tough, yucky, unmentionable stuff when life and the economy does not go your way. And what do you do as a leader, as a business owner? How do you pull yourself through? There's a lot of richness in here because so often, as he shares, we have no problem talking about our success stories and the good times, but we tend to shy away from talking about the challenges. But that's where we learn, that's where we grow, that's where our humanness shows, and that's where we connect. And so there's just a lot of really good, tangible things he talks about that he does to help himself stay focused that I think a lot of us could benefit from, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a formal leader, or whether you're just showing up as a leader in your life. All right, Chris, I am so excited to have this conversation with you, my friend. Are you ready?
Rosie, I am ready, and I'm equally as excited.
All right. Well, so in a lot of the work we do, we talk about that we need to wade in the messy middle, and people don't like to be in the middle of the mess. They want to just have like an easy button. They want to have a fast forward button, but life doesn't have an easy button. Life doesn't have a fast forward button. And I know that you have been through a lot with your business, and I think there's so much that people can learn from you. So we're just going to go right to the messy middle as a jumping off point and talk to us about what do you do when life does what it does and stuff goes completely sideways or completely astray? Or as you put it, what do you do when shit hits the fan?
So, well, you jump and run for the hills and hide in a cave and pull a rock and you hide until the storm comes over. No, it's obviously quite the opposite. So I think anybody who's a business owner out there, you never talk about the bad times. But when the bad times really come or when the slow times really hit, this is when you really hunker down I think this is when the best businesses have ever been made because you truly have to plan your work your plan and become operationally sound. And when the shit hits the fan, so to speak, I think this is when your relationships out there in the world really start to blossom and grow because you have to realize first and foremost, you're not alone. There are tons of business owners out there who are going through the exact same thing you are. And everyone loves to share their success stories. But I got to tell you, it is perfectly fine, acceptable. And I would highly recommend you also to reach out during times of when it's tough and get some help and start talking about it. And not like pity party stuff. I mean, like, how's it going for you? What are you seeing? What are you bumping into? What's happening? Because you're not the only person in your industry running through whatever you're doing, right? So I run a technology recruiting company. And for a lot of years, it's been, doing really, really well. Obviously, the pandemic was a nice little, kind of breakup for a lot of things. But the last calendar year, with 2023, we saw a lot of tech. You still hear about it, the layoffs that have been going on. A lot of the, FANG companies, not doing all that well. They've overhired, industry corrections. So anybody in the recruiting industry that I've ever known for 25 years that I've been doing it, we were all kind of in the same position, all kind of in the same boat, all kind of looking at each other like a deer in headlights. But I found it was interesting that nobody wanted to communicate with each other. So I was reaching out to friends of mine in the business, being like, "Hey, how's it going?" Like, "I'm fine. I'm okay." And I'm like, "No, you're not. Like, listen, this is when you got to like band together and get help. Reach out to your peer group. Stay operationally sound. I think during these slow times is the best time to clean up the mess that you've made when you're running so fast that you can't keep up with it. And there are typically a lot of systems that you can clean up. There's a lot of processes that you can clean up. You can put pen to paper on a lot of things that you can do to maneuver out of it. I think the other thing is also, I can talk about state, you can talk about your mental affairs and all that kind of stuff, but you do know that you're going to get out of it sooner or later. Any industry you're in, the economy, life, it works in cycles. What goes up comes down, but it's never really down for as long as you think it's down for. It feels like it's down forever because it's really slow. And every day you're looking at the clock and it's 1:00 and an hour and a half gone by and it's only 1:02. And you're like, oh my God, what is going on today? Or you feel like you've been busy all day, but you don't really have any instant gratification or something to come from it. So believe it or not, you've probably, if you look in your internal systems and internal processes, I guarantee you things are a mess. So put your thinking cap on, get in there and start cleaning some stuff up. There is business to be done, whether it's internally or externally, whether it's operationally sound, whether it's people you can fortify your relationships with, whether it's people you can reach out and talk to, whether you can broaden your network. But understand that it happens to everyone, and understand that you have a lot more friends out there than you think you do. And everyone's going to come through it together. We're all, I always like when they're bad times for some people, it's great times for others. When it's bad times for someone, it's bad times for others. So just, I'd love to say like, oh, just put on the, wake up and put on the happy face. It's tough sometimes, but give yourself purpose, give yourself some meaning, stay healthy, work out, keep your body in a position where you're physically fit and mentally fit. To the contrary belief, I will say this: do not glue yourself to your chair in front of your computer for 15 hours a day. You're going to kill yourself. Don't do it. Get up, walk around, go get some air, get some fresh ideas. Your best ideas typically come when you're not thinking about work, when you're just walking around, when you're outside, when you're having a cup of coffee. All of a sudden, ideas come to you. Write them down and then schedule them and put them into play. And that's a whole different kind of conversation. But I wish I had all the tricks out there, but those are the things that I stick to when I've been doing my job in technology recruitment for 25 years. I've seen now my third recession and a global pandemic. And trust me, it's, there are plenty of things that you can be doing, and the sun will shine again one day.
Well, one, thank you for just going right there. And I love what you talked about that. I think sometimes in any business, like you said, there are cycles. And when we have slower times, sometimes, there's that old saying that sometimes we have to pause in order to speed back up again. And I think sometimes, when we're going fast and furious, we don't necessarily maybe have the structure or the processes or the systems that will serve us for future growth, for future scalability. I know that we had a period in our business where we said, right now we're focused on getting our house in order and some of the stuff that we're going to need in order to be able to grow again, right? When it is the time. And so I appreciate that. So the other thing, I want to circle back to something you said that I think is really impactful, because I think that there is a tendency to just gloss over, oh, I'm fine, or I'm just getting through. There is a tendency to just kind of either go inward and like focus on yourself or pity party or think you're alone, right? And make up this narrative that we're by ourselves. And one of the things that you told me that you did, this past year when stuff was tough, that is counterintuitive. It wasn't just reaching out to your peer network, but you reached out to your competitors, which most people would not do. Can you talk a little more about like what was your thinking behind that and how did that go?
It's so funny that some people are so afraid of your competitors because we have this word competition. We're in competition with each other. I don't want to give out any secrets. I hate to say this, but in the world, the day and age that we live of today, there are no secrets. Everyone has the same secrets, and your secrets are my secrets and my secrets are your secrets. So I'm just like, you might as well just, kind of help each other out a little bit. And there's a lot of business to be had out there. And that's the other thing. I honestly, I really look at it. I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of business to be had. I'm not all that worried about, the business that I do. And there are things that I'm going to pick up from somebody that maybe I haven't thought of. There are things that someone's going to pick up from me that maybe they haven't thought of. So I don't know. I think you're nuts if you think that you're the only person in your business and that you have all the trade secrets and you're the one who's the most dynamic personality that anyone's ever met. And if I talk to my competition, they're going to pick up all my things that I'm doing and I have to keep them really close to the vest. And if I hug them really tightly, no one will know. But it's like, I hate to tell you this, but they have the same books you do. They have the same internet. All, there's people out there that giving this stuff away. I give it away. And I maybe call it, karma, whatever you will, but give it away and good things will happen to you. And I've realized that like you start talking to people and all of a sudden they get their juices flowing, you get your juices flowing. And next thing you know, I've shared business with my competitors before because they maybe have a niche that I don't have. And I have the client, but they have the niche and the specialty and the demand space. So all of a sudden I can turn around and call somebody and be like, hey, listen, like, I can't service this correctly. You want to split it with me? You want to go in habbies with me? And all of a sudden someone's like, yeah, let's do that. And then you're making the client happy. You guys are both making money. So what's wrong with that? Like, that's the way business is done. So, I mean, yeah, like put it out there and good things will happen to you. And, I don't know. Good people will attract good people. I'm a fan of the energy out there that business is for everybody and everybody should be talking about it.
Well, I think that's such a healthy approach because there is a pervasive scarcity mindset, and that scarcity mindset really doesn't serve well. And to your point, I know we've had different times where something comes in and either we don't have the bandwidth or we're scheduled with other clients or whatever, and so we have other people who do similar things. Not everything we do, right? But certain aspects where we can go, either we can refer you just directly to this person and we have a referral agreement, that we'll give you X percent, we'll give you X percent because we know they do good work. And likewise, they might refer stuff into us. And it's just like, rather than fighting each other, because we can't be everywhere and we can't be all things to all people. So I think that that's a really healthy approach. Another thing I am curious about is, for you as a human being, for you as a leader, for you as a business owner, when life did what it did, right? And you hit the recession and things were tightening in your industry and all that goes with it. How were you able to maintain focus on what needs to be done? How are you able to navigate kind of what steps you needed to take to move through the challenging, tough times?
Highly planned. So I have a planning system that I work with that I know I really become operationally sound. So I have a planning system that I work with. And what happens is, first and foremost, you have to understand short-term, midterm, long-term. Now, short-term could be a week, could be 2 weeks out, right? Midterm sometimes for people is a month, 2 months out, not always 6 months, 3 years out. Long-term in some cases is 6 months out what you're looking at, maybe just 2 quarters away, maybe just the end of the quarter. So understanding, realistically speaking, I wouldn't say give yourself like deadlines, but understand like really what your goals are, or really what you're trying to accomplish by a given time, and then break it down. The second thing I always do is I have a system set up either on my phone or my computer. It's a list, what I call them brain dumps. And what you do is every time you have an idea, I get it out of my head and onto paper as quickly as possible. And it could be for, whatever. It could be something financial, it could be something operational, it could be an advertising or marketing technique, someone you want to reach out to. But if something popped into your head unexpectedly, you have to understand the reason why it's in there and get it out of your head as quickly as possible into a list. And what I do is at the end of the day, I consolidate my list into groups, and I'll have like people to reach out to. And all of a sudden I'll have like 2 or 3 people that popped in my head that I want to reach out to. And at the end of the day, I turn around, I look at my list and I'm like, oh, reach out to this person, reach out to this person. And then I'll do that. Or I have like maybe some financial topics that I'm thinking about. What I do is I schedule those now on my calendar. So like, okay, so tomorrow from 2 to 4, or from 2 to 3, I'll research, a couple of those financial things I was thinking about. So what I'm always doing is trying to keep myself sharp between the ears by coming up with ideas, understanding what my ideas are, planning my ideas, and then thinking forward about what I want to do. If it's something I want to launch by the end of the quarter, I just work backwards from launch date as far as what I want to do. And then I make sure I have a plan to do it. Same thing if it's 6 months out, a year out, whatever those things might be. So I'm one of those people who's like, if it's in my head, I will forget about it as quickly as possible. And we've all been there, right? You're doing something and you walk into the kitchen and you open the refrigerator and you have no idea why you open the refrigerator or what you're looking at anymore. And then you turn around and you're like, I don't even know why I'm in the kitchen. So it happens that quickly. So if you have ideas, get them out on paper as quickly as possible. And then you can start to schedule them and implement them and use them. I'm also a big fan. I don't use Post-its. I despise Post-it notes. So that's why I work in lists either on my phone or on my computer that they all talk to each other. I'm a good old fashioned whiteboard. I have a whiteboard next to me that if I'm thinking about something or something pops into me on my phone, I write it down. And what I do is I have specific goals and themes that I have that I'm going after. And then if I have a theme, I break it into 3 subset categories and I act that way. So what I'm doing is I'm always giving myself projects. I'm always giving myself something to do. And I'm always giving myself like an opportunity to get ahead of the curve. Because again, even if it's quote unquote slow from a sales cycle, slow from a business cycle, there are things that I need to be doing to stay ahead of the curve. So when it pops out, I'm prepared for it.
I love the very deliberate and methodical, organized approach. It's funny you're talking about when stuff pops in your head because that happens to me all the time. So, if I'm like in a random spot, I quick pull up the notes thing on my phone. I mean, because it's like otherwise, yeah, it'll leave my brain and I'm like, oh, I'm going to remember it. Yeah, no, I'm not. Right. Or I will sit and jot it down and I do try to get it into my computer. It's funny. I do have Post-it notes around, but some of those are just reminders and some of it's like, that's the closest thing. And then it gets into something, it gets into a document, it gets into something, but I like the color. So one of so thank you for all that. There's some really good tactical stuff there. And so one other thing that you and I talked about previously that I think is an important piece here that I think can have people drowned when they're in the messy middle, that can contribute to them maybe going further into a hole when times are challenging, when times are slow, when whatever is going on from a business or from a life standpoint. And one of the things that I have found that can be super helpful to guide, like, what are our next steps? What are our priorities? What are our goals? And how do we move through that is making sure we've done the work to be really clear about our individual purpose and our organization's purpose. And I'm curious for you, as you were navigating the messy middle, in particular this past year, what role did that play for you? And how did you leverage it? And what are some insights that you kind of took from this past year?
So I love this topic because, and I'll try to keep it brief. So the whole idea of know your why is, and I mean like why you did this in the first place. So there's a reason why you went to venture on your own. There's a reason why you started your own company. There's a reason you're in the position you're in. Never lose that why. The problem what happens out there, I see a lot, is people get persuaded from one into another, or they call it a pivot. And I understand like pivoting, I get that part, but it's like you start getting swayed by the almighty dollar. And then money becomes your ultimate deciding factor on what you're doing and why you're doing it. But the problem is what happened is when you started doing it in the first place, understanding that revenue, money, and all the rewards that happen are a byproduct of you following through on your why. So what I have in my company is I have the 3 basic principles, or what I call the core pillars of success for my organization. And whether we are doing phenomenally or whether we're struggling and trying to push a boulder up the hill, I always say that there are 3 reasons I got into this business. And we know what they are as a company. We bleed them, we preach them, we practice them. And it's the culture of the organization on what we really stand on and what we believe in. So I think when the shit hits the fan out there, it's like you as the leader, you've got to be the one going like, don't forget why we're doing this. All right. Because I hate to tell you this, but when you first started doing it, you weren't very successful at it then either. You had to build everything from scratch. And I started my company on my dining room table with a laptop and a 6-month-old crawling around the house. Now it's elevated to 3 teams and 35 people, offices and this, that, and the other. And now we're, different locations, et cetera, et cetera. But when you start to go through hard times, you have to remember, this is why I did it. This is what made me successful. Just keep doing that. And yeah, you're gonna evolve a little bit with maybe how things are done. But again, it's understanding that the end product, the end result, and the rewards that you received were from all the things you did correctly whenever it was. Hold true to that. Never let that go. And if money's your thing, then that's awesome too. Okay. But there's one thing about money that I've always said is like, it's never going to be enough. You've never hit your goal, because as soon as you hit what you're striving to achieve, now you just want more, right? You never go, I want to make this much money. And then you hit that number and you're like, now I'm all done. He's like, no, now I'm just going to keep making more, right? You just keep doing it. So the core fundamentals and the why you do things, I think it's really, really important for people to understand that. I'm a promoter of it. I'm a believer in it. You mentioned the word purpose. You have to have one. You have to understand it. And then that's what I would call like the mission statement or that company belief structure, or what I call it, like what your true company culture really is. That's what holds you together. That's the glue that keeps everybody together, because you always have one common goal you're going for. And then that's the why.
I love all of that. And I will tell you, with one of our clients in particular, pre-pandemic, we did a lot of work with them to help them clarify their why, clarify their hows, again, what behaviors are really critical, and really create a structure with a network of culture ambassadors to help keep that alive and be stewards of the culture with their colleagues, because they're spread out multiple locations as well. And it's very interesting because they had at the start of the pandemic, their COO became their CEO. And then, boom, 2 months later, hi, pandemic. And he and they have said consistently over and over that had they not done that work to be really intentional about their culture, to be really intentional about their purpose, they don't think they would have fared as well as they did during the pandemic. And they actually had 2 record years in a row, which is like really kind of crazy. And they know there's going to be the ups and downs and they can't, sustain that forever. But there's a lot to that. And so I'm curious, for your organization, for Averity, when you have those core pillars and whatnot, what I would love to hear, what are some of the deliberate practices that you have in place to keep those at the forefront for people? Because it's one thing to have them and say, oh, you need to keep them as a filter, but like, what are some of the tactical things that you do internally that keep that alive or keep that as a filter for people to hang on to guide them through that messy middle and guide them through good times as well?
I just constantly remind people what they are. So the 3 pillars we have for success, I can explain it because then they'll make sense. Is first and foremost, we're in a service-oriented business. So the first pillar of success for us is provide an unparalleled experience with everybody you interact with. All right. Now, that means if whomever you're speaking to, understand that the experience that you're trying to provide is unparalleled. And that means you have to go above, like you're going to go above and beyond the call of duty to make sure that that person understands, if I can help you, I'm going to. If I can't, I'm going to let you know. Total transparency, total honesty. But it's like, just do what you say what you do, and then follow through on it. Right. So that's that unparalleled experience that we want to offer. Second thing, work as a team. Like, I'm a huge believer in teamwork, communication, collaboration, share information, a lot of high fives, a lot of virtual high fives, Slack each other, like constantly over communicate with everybody. But my biggest thing with that type of stuff, celebrate every win possible. You have to celebrate all your wins. And there are so many people out there that they're waiting for the big touchdown, the big 70-yard bomb. But I'm like, listen, I tell you, there's a lot of things that happen in between those that you can celebrate right now, right? So whether you got a hold of somebody you haven't spoken to in 6 months, that's a big win. Whether somebody, I don't care what it is, there's a win that you can celebrate. So every Monday morning when we do our weekly kickoffs, we talk about the big wins, and everyone goes around the room. They share 1 to 2 big wins they had in the last week. So that's a huge thing for us. And what that does is it brings up your teamwork. It reminds everybody that like kind of what we're doing. Also, fundamentally, what I did last year at the end of the year is a lot of people had arguably one of the worst years they've had in a long time. And I was like, we all have celebrations and we all have stories that we can share with our successes. I want to hear everybody go around the room and, kicking off tomorrow, your 2 greatest accomplishments this year. What are your 2 things that you're going to celebrate right now? And everyone loved it because it kind of reminded you, like, you know what? I still have things to celebrate. I'm still doing okay. And I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter. It's not a competition. You're not playing for the trophy, but those types of things keep people involved with remembering, which my third pillar is the best company to work for, period. Is it instills those ideas like, this is an amazing company to work for because we have amazing people that share in our success, that there's no water cooler talk around here. There's no pity parties. There's no bad days. It's just, how do you frame it? And then through all of that, understanding that, you're in a service oriented business, provide a phenomenal service. You represent yourself, you represent your family name, you represent your company. So when you put those three things on the line, remember what you're doing out there. So I kind of always drive people back to, this is what we're doing. And that's my job, is to make sure that they're, that they have the brand that sticks behind them. That's what they do. And then they turn around, they're like, you know what? Even though it wasn't the best day out there, I still have some wins to celebrate. I'm still feeling really good about myself, and I can't wait to attack it tomorrow.
Well, and I think what's coming up for me as you say that is such a critical point, that anyone who has a formal leadership role in any organization, part of the formal leadership role is to over and over and over and over reconnect people to the purpose so they see the relevance in their work, reconnect them to the organization's purpose, to the values, to, the pillars for success, to whatever it is that like we call it, like the lighthouse. But we have to reconnect people to that over and over and never assume, because we do get caught up in the day-to-day busy and lose sight of that. And what I love is that you're building those into your weekly meetings, because that's such a easy way. Like we always say with our clients, like depending on the cadence that you meet with your team, and we could go on a whole other conversation about whether meetings are effective or not, or what meetings should have what, but in any regular cadence of meetings, both one-on-one and team, is your purpose, is your culture code or your culture pillars, are your values a agenda item every single time? Like where are we seeing this in action, and let's celebrate it? Where do we have missed opportunities, and what can we learn from it? So not in a shaming way, but if we're not regularly talking about it and reconnecting people, we're missing a huge opportunity. And that's where it starts to become purpose washing, right? Or it's just words on a website and it's not a lived experience. And then you have any new employee that comes in that maybe got excited about who they thought the company was. And now they're just deflated because, like, well, that's not reality. And it's such an easy fix. I mean, it's just having some deliberate practices, having some intentionality, having some structure around how you go about your meetings in your company, how you go about communication, and reconnecting people to key things that you want them to keep in front of you over and over and over.
It's funny you mention it, because I've said this before a lot of times. Like, people management is hard. And people, like, a lot of times people want to be managers because they think they're really good at what they do, but they don't understand that. I would say people management is arguably one of the most difficult jobs out there, because if you don't understand people, you're in trouble. And what I mean by that is, like, a lot of times you'll see it. They're like, oh, they're doing extremely well. They're experiencing a lot of success. They're obviously really happy. That's not the case. All right. And also, just because someone's not doing all their well, or they're not having success, doesn't necessarily mean they're unhappy or something to that effect. Because there's a lot of times that, like, oh, you'd be happier. I had someone tell me this one, like, oh, if you were performing at your optimum level, Chris, you'd be much happier on the job. And I said, actually, I'm not performing to my optimum level because I genuinely hate this job. I hate this company. I can't stand working here. So I'm gonna do just enough to skate by until I get something else lined up. So yeah, how about that one? But no, like, you never bothered to check in if I was actually happy. Kind of the same things. You see people that are overperforming, and then you don't check in with them. Hey, how's it going? Dude, you're doing awesome right now, man. How you doing? How you feeling? And then, because someone could tell you, it's like, I'm a great performer, I'm top tier, but I genuinely can't stand working here. It's this idea of you have to not be scared of the feedback, and just don't, like, check in with your people. People management is a very difficult thing. It involves a lot of communication. It involves a lot of understanding, and you've got to. And if you're scared of feedback, do not show up as a human leader. That is for sure.
Going back to the feedback, there is something very powerful and necessary in being willing to check in with people of how are they actually doing, right? Because we feel like, oh, we don't want to ask the question because what if our people aren't happy or people aren't engaged? And so we've even built deliberate practices into our one-on-one. So we talk about, whatever the heck is going on. And then once we talk about agenda items or whatever, if it hasn't already come up, it's always going to be, what are you most excited about or fulfilled by, or what's been going really well since the last time we met? Because it's trying to find out for them, like, what do they find fulfilling and what do they want to do more of, et cetera. And it's a really great opportunity to layer onto it with some additional recognition, feedback, and like, yeah, I would agree, et cetera. Then we say, what hasn't been going as well? What is frustrating? What would, what was misstep, whatever. And again, not in a blaming way, but it's also, okay, great. Then you can layer on like additional growth feedback to help them through it. And then turn around and say, okay, so as your leader, since we last met, what's something that I've been doing that you have found helpful or supportive or you want me to continue or do more of? And then what hasn't been as helpful? What would you like me to do differently? And we're so afraid of asking those questions. But you know what? When your leader asks you those questions and they like want to know, how am I doing as a leader? It's like, oh, because we don't know. Like, people don't know until someone says, oh, we're going to do like a 360 on you. And that's the first time they've gotten any real feedback because they don't ask the question and no one feels like they can give it to them. And it's like, that doesn't help us grow.
When you're managing people, you have to understand that you can't force people's hand into things. I've had people that have worked for me before that are awesome. And I've looked at them and I'm like, how's it going? They're like, I'm doing okay. I'm like, dude, you're killing it right now. Like, what's happening? And then they start describing things to me. And I've had some conversations like, I'm not going to lie to you. I love you. I want you here. I don't think this is the right job for you. I think you look horrible. You look miserable. I'm like, I'm looking at you. I mean, you sound terrible, man. I'm like, let's call a spade a spade. Why don't you take a day or why don't you take a couple of days, kind of do some soul searching and figure out if this is really where you want to be. And I think all you do is just elevate your game. And I've had some people turn around and tell me like, that was the best conversation I've ever had in my life. I can't believe you did that. And yeah, I'm gonna give notice. And I'm like, listen, I wish you nothing but success in all your endeavors in life. It's kind of common sense to me. It's like, leave that open door with people and life is a long journey. So I don't know. I'm one of those people who's just like, treat people the way you want to be treated. Little of the golden rule in there, and you're gonna do just fine.
Well, and what? One of the things I love about that of being transparent is going back to like the old Jim Collins, do we have the right seats on the bus? I mean, if you don't, it doesn't benefit anybody. But here's the thing, if we can have authentic conversations with someone that, hey, like, I think you're miserable, whatever, I want you to be happy, and we're supportive of that, then they're not leaving with a bad taste in their mouth. They're not leaving with, bad mouthing you as a leader or your company. They might actually be your biggest advocate of, for the right person, man, go work here. It wasn't my deal, but this is how like open and transparent they were and how important it is that they have people who have fulfilling work. Like, that's a conversation that not many leaders and not many organizations are courageous enough to have. So I would say kudos to you for that.
So 5-cent quick story. I had a woman who worked for me. She just wasn't happy, left everything on a great note, like, love you, you're awesome, definitely look forward to working together with you one day. She went to another organization, started, when they had openings that they could use for a recruiting firm, she called us and said, I can use a recruiting firm. We have the budget. There's no other agency I would ever want to work with. I definitely want you guys to handle it for me. And we did a lot of business together. So I think about that and I'm like, you know what? That's what it's all about.
I love that. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I want to shift gears just a little bit. And you've been so open and transparent. And speaking of, the messy middle, which is how we kicked off this whole conversation, one of the things that I am fairly obsessed with is normalizing the messiness of being human. And one of the things that I've learned in the work that we do is, no matter how many successes we've had, no matter how much work we've done on ourselves, it is in our human DNA to tell ourselves stories that keep us safe and small. And so what I would love for you to share, Chris, is, what is a self-limiting story that you still tell yourself sometimes? And when it shows up, how do you move beyond it so that you can still show up as a leader in your life and have the impact you want to have?
You haven't read my book, The Art of Self-Sabotage? We all do it. Some of us are better at it than others. I've perfected the art of self-sabotage, so I can speak very highly about this. The stories you tell yourself are, you will believe anything you tell yourself, whether you can or you can't. You always believe it. What I think about this is if you dream too big, it's awesome to get caught up in what it will be. And then sometimes you turn around and you look at your office or wherever your workspace is, and you're like, oh my God, how am I going to get there? So I think that's one thing to understand, is that, like, first of all, there is no dream that's too big. Write it down, look at it, and then and go for it. Have a plan for it, but go for it. But also understand, no, it's not going to happen tomorrow. You're not going to go from zero to a multi-billion-dollar empire in like in like 6 months. It's just, regardless of how many YouTube videos or how much AI you have, like it doesn't work that way. It takes a long time. So it takes a long time to get rich quick. So don't expect it. Just work at it one day at a time. The stories that keep yourself safe and small. I think the defeating factors a lot of people tell themselves are, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And we all do it. I'm one of those people also, but I've overturned myself over time. Like, it's not too good to be true. I'm really good at what I do. And as long as I continue to do the right things, good things will happen for me and good things will happen to me. I'm also one of those people that say, there's a lot of people out there like to think that people are lying, that they're not telling me the truth. They're telling me what I want to hear. And I sit there and say, it's like, well, I can't control what other people are doing. However, what I can control is my own actions. So I'm always going to be transparent, trustworthy. I'm going to do what I say what I do. And I'm going to put that energy out there that hopefully I just assume that I'm going to get the same in return. But it's this idea of like, I will get back what I attract. So the more I give out, the more I'll get back. And I don't expect anything more than that. And I think that's when I think about self-sabotage. It's this idea of, you want to step on your own toes. You like, things are going great, but you're like, oh, it's not going to last long. I'm just lucky. It's like, well, wow, what an awful feeling to have. Like, things are going great. Why is it going great? Because I'm putting great out there. Like, so what I got to do is just continue to put great out there and great things will happen for me. Continue to have great conversations with people and great people will attract themselves to me. You can put great things out there and then you can have some really bad things happen to you, bad stories or companies don't pay you. And then understand the fact that that's not your fault. That's okay. That's what business is. That's what life is. It just happens. You don't understand what they're going through, et cetera, et cetera. So don't shoot yourself in the foot. Celebrate your successes. Be happy with it. Write them down. Give yourself a pat on the back. There's the old school mentality is give yourself a high five in the mirror. Amazing things can come from that. I could go on, but I just think keep yourself in front of yourself and keep yourself happy and understand what you're doing and it's working. Celebrate that.
I love it. I also love you have lots of practices to get out of your own way when that narrative creeps up for you. So that's awesome. All right. Are you ready for quick questions?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Fill in the blank. Living authentically is
the best feeling on earth.
When the world is presenting an opening, but you don't feel like showing up as a leader, what do you do?
Show up regardless.
What is something people would be surprised to know about you?
I'm a licensed pilot.
Shut the front door. I love that.
Yeah. Because what's the fun thing about hobbies? A lot of people are like, well, you can fly planes. I'm like, what's really important flying them? You have to be able to land them. So yes, I land airplanes also.
You land. That is true. What goes up must come down or whatever it is. So love it. All right. What is your favorite go-to movie?
So Back to the Future. Love it. Never gets old. Honest, I love golf. Tin Cup. I can have it on all day long, just in the background, and it never gets old either. So those are two of my kind of go-tos.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Classics. All right. What's something you can't live without?
I can't live without sunshine. I am a magnet for the sun. The sunnier it is, the happier I am. It's just my persona. I cannot live without amazing food. I'm a foodie. I'm a big cook, and it is something it is a necessity for me.
What is something in your ordinary daily life that makes your heart happy?
You know what makes me happy? Genuine kindness and happiness with people. And I mean like the word genuine, authentic, like good people that just want to be good people.
And what are you grateful for right now?
Life, the moon, the sun, the stars, and the fact that I think one of the things that I always say that I'm more grateful for than anything in the world is the choices I have made through my life on the people that I have decided to invite into my circle. And I have invited some amazing people to be in my circle. And there's some people that I have gotten rid of out of my circle. But I've got a circle of people that are just absolutely ridiculous. And I love them all. And I would do anything for them and they would do anything for me. And I think it's in business, it's in life, it's in family, it's in your friends, it's in everything you do. And I can never be happier.
Okay, closing question. Chris, if you could challenge leaders everywhere to practice this one behavior that would create more human workplaces and equip everyone to show up as a leader, what would that be?
Ask your team, why do you work here? Why do you come to work here every day? And you'll get some honest answers. Notice I didn't say what motivates you. I said, why do you work here every day? And then you can start to work your magic.
Well, Chris, I just want to thank you for being so transparent. And I love that you talk about, some people, it's easy to talk about success stories and we want to gloss over the tough times, but there's richness in that. And I think you've given us a lot of really tangible nuggets. And just beyond that, your humanness and your transparency is just very real. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate all that you are doing. So thank you for the conversation.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It was so awesome.
I'm Rosie Ward, and this is Show Up as a Leader. To learn more, head over to peopleforwardnetwork.com and, of course, hit that follow button.